Hello and welcome back to my channel, Chess Capture Threats. Today's episode 51 of the Chess Guide, will be going over when to trade. So, we have got 2 episodes here of when to trade and when not to trade. That will be in tomorrow's episode, and that is going to be obviously the opposite of what we're going to do in this one. So, here, what we're going to be doing is 4 openings, so we can understand still how the openings work, and we keep using our, vivid imagination here of how it's going to look for our games, and you just have that immediate realization that you're in that position. And we've got the Queen's Gambit here, we have the Nimzo Indian, the London system, and last one is the England Gambit. So we'll go over those 4, and what we're going to be doing to this episode is how we can trade correctly. So when we are actually going to be trading pieces. So this is, make sure you know this episode we're not winning pieces, this is trading. So trading is where you get something and they give it back almost, so you're kind of giving one for the other. So a bishop for a knight, a pawn exchange, swapping queens off, for example, all of that stuff. So we'll start now. So this first example here from the Queen's Gambit. Now this, realistically, in this position, if what we see here is this pin, let's just say this, we see this pin, obviously. Now, if they just played a normal knight move, we don't want to take. Now, the reason is they get their queen active, and, now they're putting pressure on our centre, and that wasn't really happening before. I quite like the pin, if you ask me there, and I feel like this now adds a bit more of a sense of danger now on the king's side. So, the thing is here, is you've always got to watch for a pin, because if they try and break the pin by doing a move like this causes trouble for black, and this is when we do trade. If they ever try and get their piece unprotecting this, we capture. So now we trade, and because the queen can't take, they have to take the pawn, and now look at our position. We now have a huge line of attack onto this king, and the evaluation says we're a point up just because of how, strong this position is, because of how much we can make a knight move here, and immediately we can push our queen in, for example. So there, what we're just trying to understand here is that don't trade when it's protected there and it's making the piece better. When you want to trade, you want to make sure either a few things. It's either forced, so you're being attacked, for example, and let's say you couldn't move back because you're going to get trapped. You might have to take. Now that's not the worst, because if you think this position, the pawns aren't in the best scenario. You're not losing, so it's not the worst. But also, it could be fantastic, like we saw here. This is very good for white. And now we'll be able to get our queen out, we can get our queen over here, push our pawns up, and get everything around there. So hopefully, from that example, we'll just understand that trading can give us anything. So this gives us double pawn here, for example, and I think we'll know what happens. This one, we go over it a few times, the Nimzo Indian. So when they made this move e3, obviously they allow for this double pawn. Now, this is, in my opinion, the right time to trade, especially if they went like this. If they went like this, you're pretty much guaranteed to. As you go back, you actually lose the bishop. Remembering this little, you get blocked. So here, you capture, and they get double pawn. Now, again, this is a good trade, because in my opinion, as black, you have not really got rid of any, development. You're quite good just to play d4, d5 and c5. Now, what else as well here is that they're going to struggle to get this bishop out, and this queen. It's all going to be jumbled around, this sort of section, I would say. Anywhere around here, the pieces are going to be jumbled up for white, and they're going to have a slow development over that side. So they'd have to play all over to the king side, and we could form our attack there. So, we could play moves like, maybe we want to try and play c5. Now, again, that looks like a sacrifice, but if you take here, you have moves like this. And again, we're attacking these weak pawns now that they've caused because we've done a very good trade here. So again, you might even have moves like this. Now this might get rid of it all, but again, you could do something like this, attack, put pressure. Maybe you want to just slow it down, and you still have this sort of queen idea. And what you can use is use the trading. If you have a good trade here, if you trade the pieces right, and you have that sort of double pawn thing, don't be afraid to give back almost that thing. So there, we kind of gave back that double pawn, but now we've got a nice pawn in the centre, and we've opened up our bishop now. Normally, this is our worst bishop, like in the French, like in the, any other opening that plays e6 here. this would have been useless, but now we've sacrificed almost, their double pawns for a pawn in the centre firstly, but also a bishop that could go into a very nice square. So those are those two. So that's a white and a black opening. And the last two openings here, we got the London system. Now, here is a very symmetrical position. So we've obviously got this because if they play a move like this, we were forced to play this because any moves like this we'd have to block. So that's not what we're on though. What we're seeing here is how we can actually kind of force a trade here almost. Now, if we play a move bishop to d3, now we've done our pyramid here, but we're also attacking the f5 bishop. Now let's say they don't worry about it, they just want to move a knight. Now we can capture this, and now they've got a really bad double pawn, and they've opened up their middle, like their midpoint here, so the center. Now, the reason this is good, now yes, it puts more protection on this part of the center, but having this open file here, it doesn't take very long for you to castle, and put all of these pieces onto this move here, try and swap off everything, and you're going to be winning. So that's one way you could do it. Now, let's say they move back, here. Now, we can trade. So, if we do trade, the only thing I would say is this is very risky for a position like this. You would probably want to wait till they castle. So sometimes you might see it like this, and then you play a few moves. So, you might see this happen a lot. And if they castle, now you can play it, because they can't take really here. They have this whole opening here, across here. But also, if they take with this pawn, now this happens a lot. You see an open rook here, but this has put pressure on this e6 square. So, hopefully you understand there. Now, the London, most of the time you'll see that those sort of trades as white, though, is very good because you get that open rook, as we see a few times I've played the rapid increase. Now, last but not least, the most recent episode we've done here, the England Gambit. So, that's part of the Learn the Openings. Now, remembering, hopefully you watched it and saw that you can't really play bishop f4. There is a few risky things with it after queen b4 check. You don't really want to deal with all of this sort of thing, and you lose this pawn and you have to do stuff like this. So instead, let's say you play knight c3. The reason here is most of the time you want to sacrifice this pawn back, so it's a gambit, but you want to give back the pawn for rapid development. So now we're going to take. Now here, for white, do you trade or do you not trade? Now let's look at the possibilities. So if you play the move bishop to f4, now this is a very good move, one of the top moves, but we've got to realise here what happens, because if we capture now for the check, they can't capture with this e-pawn, they can't open this bishop up. It would be beautiful if they could, but you're actually forced to have to take with this g-pawn. Now, this means you can't castle kingside, otherwise if we just show you here, you can move that there, but it just doesn't look right with this pawn here. You're going to have a really struggling king now. So, here, instead, what you could do is recapture. Now, you've got a knight out, and black has a queen out. You easily can both get your bishops out. Both get your bishops out here. And the other is quite even, other than white has a knight out and black has a queen out. And most of the time, having a queen out in the opening doesn't really work. So, here, you're just going to have simple development. So, might even be moves like f4 you want to play. Maybe you want to attack this kingside. So when, have this, you start playing moves like this. And they've got this king's gambit type sort of thing, just without the pawn on e5. So here we're just trying to show you that most of the time that is the right trade that white has to do. See, as black, you want to take this pawn. But as white, you don't really want to leave this. Yes, it's technically still good doing this. But do you really want to have to play, this where you're going to have to castle, queenside, and sometimes that could be risky. I've only just played a few moves just to show this, but if we had, these sort of pawns, already pushing, these are going to be weak. So that's it for today's episode. Hopefully you understand this episode of when to trade. Next episode on the chess guide will be when not to trade, obviously going back on some of the things here, so maybe when they're pinned and everything, how we don't do that. Now, hopefully you understood this episode though. That's the main thing, that we can capture pieces that are, the main thing here, the saying is, they've got to be either you have to capture a piece to trade them. If it's forced, you have no other move other than taking it, otherwise you're going to be in losing position. It has to be fantastic. You know, you have to get, when I say fantastic, it has to just, you know, gain an advantage in some sort, you know, double pawn them. Maybe, yes, their queen could capture it, but maybe their queen has nothing else to do after that and it's trapped of some sort. So, thank you for watching this video. So, thank you and bye-bye.